Alright, we are recording chapter 6 now. So as I said in the previous video, we are back to Tatooine with Anakin. Okay, then looks like we're back to Naboo for chapter 7. Just quickly looking at the first few words of that chapter, in fact. So there is some confusing stuff in it, and inconsistencies that it's just some cases from top of the paragraph to the end of the paragraph, other cases from this page to that page. Okay, so, as I said, we're back to Tatooine with Anakin. He is being sent out to barter with some Jawas. That does explain there that Watto is doing this as part of his punishment, even though Anakin's also pointing out that, well, yeah, but I'm also really good at it, and he knows it. So it's not really that big a problem, and he's done this plenty of times before. So that on its own, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But what's weird, and where we get confusing here, or rather what is written is confused, is it talks about how he keeps certain secrets. One is that he's building C-3PO, which, by the way, doesn't actually say yet that it's intended to help his mother around the house. But it does explain that he keeps that secret and the other secret that I'll get to, that he keeps those because if Watto were to know about them and saw them as having any value, he would claim them. He would claim them. Well, what's confused is that it, like, from the top to the bottom of the paragraph talking about 3PO, it goes from Watto doesn't know to Watto doesn't know how far along 3PO is, which is just needing the casing, so the skin, and is missing one eye. Okay, so which is it? Is Watto aware of it, but he figures it's just junk, whatever, let the kid mess with it? Which itself is a little inconsistent, because it's also stated again here that Anakin is very good at taking things apart and putting them back together, even having them working better than they were originally. So Watto, if anything, should be like, you're working on a droid? Okay, well, when you finish with it, it's mine. I was like, he's not going to be that stupid. But it's still, you have that confusion there. What does Watto actually know? Then you have the other secret, which is Anakin is building his own pod racer, which is the one that we see in the movie, because it was Watto's pod racer that he crashed at the beginning of the book. Okay, that helps make sense, because it's also then, like in the movie, we know Qui-Gon says that it's his pod racer, so Watto doesn't know. But again, he's like, yeah, Watto doesn't know about this, but then it becomes that, well, he has it disguised so that Watto doesn't see it as anything valuable. So it's like, so then Watto might actually know about it, but he just thinks it's junk and is meaningless. There's also another inconsistency, but at least with this, it's his own imagination, where Anakin is thinking about how once he builds it, it'll be the fastest ever, and he will win every race he enters, and then he'll build himself a starfighter, fly away, do this stuff, and then come back and be free. It's like, I think you'd have to be free earlier. But it's also, I think Watto would figure out that you build a pod racer when you are winning all these races. Because even if it is you do it in such a way that Watto doesn't see the races, it still is. He'd be hearing about a human boy winning pod races. There we go. And it's like, hey, Anakin, is there another human capable of pod racing? There must be? Uh-huh. You're not getting any days off again. I mean, it's like, that at least is the imagination of a child. But the other stuff, it is like, from the start of the paragraph to the end of the paragraph, or from one paragraph to the next. Okay, what is it that is the secret here? Is it the thing itself existing, or is it the state of the thing that is the secret? Because it is a worthwhile question there, because it can be much harder to keep a complete secret than a partial one. So Watto knowing about 3PO existing but not realizing that it's almost complete, that's easier to manage. Because then it's also, and it's even mentioned with the pod racer, Anakin's been building it by grabbing, collecting waste, scrounging for parts that would be useless otherwise. Well, if Watto's aware of Anakin having these other projects, then Anakin taking them makes sense to Watto. Whereas if Anakin is caught taking them and Watto doesn't understand there's a purpose that he tolerates, that he allows, then you potentially have a great issue here. So it isn't just you're just being really technical. It doesn't really matter. It's like, well, no, it kind of does, because it could really impact what ends up happening to Anakin if Watto finds out. If Watto sees him doing something he wouldn't normally be allowed to do. All right, moving on. So he goes out. Well, part of the reason this is all being talked about, mainly 3PO, is because he has decided to take 3PO with him for bartering with the Jawas, because 3PO can translate. Which is one thing from the original trilogy in A New Hope that does indicate a retcon, but I'm okay with that. I think it was even retconned within that trilogy, which is when it was describing the Jawa language, was that it is confused everyone who's ever tried to learn it, in part because it randomly changes. That they will just start changing the language while they're talking even, so it's quite confusing, which would imply to me then that 3PO probably shouldn't actually know it, but they probably said, we're going to drop that, that's a stupid thing. How does that actually work? It doesn't really exist as language if you start doing that, so that's my guess. But anyway, he brings him along because even though Anakin does know some of the language, and even though Anakin does have the Force allowing him to gain insight into these other people, 3PO will still be better at translating and may catch some things than actually does. One of the other Jawas makes reference to there being better droids and equipment on the inside of the Sandcrawler that they didn't bring out. And because of that mention that 3PO catches, Anakin doesn't understand it. He's able to press and they bring out 3 more droids for him to look over. And yes, indeed, they were very good. And he also finds a hyperdrive component. I don't remember what, but I'm assuming that is setting up. That's the component that is needed for the Naboo ship later. And it actually even mentions that part is so valuable. I mean, right now it's useless because it's broken, but he can fix it. He's confident he can fix it. And he's like, there's actually a comment that alone would completely justify all the bartering. Like when Watto sees that and he gets it working, that's like everything you spent was worth it. And he got more than that. He also got a number of droids. There was something else to that. Can't think of it now. Oh well. I will just say it's very intelligent what he did, bringing 3PO along to be a translator for times that he struggles, and also for the smaller things around, which Noah talked about it in a previous video. The movie Failsafe, where you have the President of the United States having dealings with the Soviet premier and having a translator there, and one thing that he does stress to the translator before they even start, not only do I want you translating for me, but also I need you paying attention to how things are said. You're basically getting an emotional read. 3PO is not necessarily going to be good at the emotions, but it is still that kind of idea. Now, true, in this, there's some Anakin has some understanding of language in the movie, at least. I don't know about the book. The President has no understanding of Russian. But it still is that idea of having somebody there who is meant to catch things that you may miss. That is very, very valid when in a situation where you need to be translated. Okay, so as they're coming back from this meeting with the Jawas in the middle of the Dune Sea, Anakin notices something, turns and looks, and decides to actually go over and investigate. Even though this is pretty stupid, 3PO is constantly telling him no. Which, by the way, they had to... he's on a speeder and going slow because the droids he purchased are following on foot, and 3PO is like in the back of the speeder watching them. What he spotted was apparently, and I have no recollection of this when I originally read this book however many years ago. Well, the Phantom Menace novelization. Apparently, Tusken Raider was up on top of a cliff, and part of the cliff fell, so he fell with it. And so he is not only injured, but covered by rocks, including a very large one. Anakin, seeing this, goes over, investigates. Turns out the guy is still alive. And even though he is... legitimately, he is afraid, but it comes up later that no, he's not. We'll get to that. He uses the droids to actually free the guy. Because the guy is still alive and all that. And then he stays with him because it's sort of a... well, if I leave, there's so many animals and such that come out at night. He'll be dead. We might as well just bury him. And we can't take him with us, so we'll stay and watch over him. So after a while, the dude wakes up. Oh, wait, hang on. Before getting to that, yes, the dude does wake up. It talks about Anakin getting out a glow unit and even adding extra fuel so it'll last the night. It's like, okay, glow unit. So, like some sort of light thing, and it's, he's fuel for it so it stays lit up, but a light, right? Like what I have there and there and there. Those lights. But then later it's referred to as a fire. So it's a fire. Why'd you call it a glow unit? This is another one of those... That's not confusing. That's just an inconsistency. And that is a glow unit here, fire here. It is weird because it is almost like you had two people going over, either writing it or going over it, and it's like they're doing every other page. It's just... yeah. It is a science fantasy world. It is reasonable to believe that you would have electronic lamps. I mean, think about on Dagobah. It is now true. That's a fusion power source that that has a lamp portion to it. It seems that he plugs into R2D2 to charge him. Luke does, but it's also a miniature light up lamp that Yoda takes. Okay, both those are electronic. It's not unreasonable that is what you would have. So, and it's like, even though this is approximately, 30, 40 years earlier than Empire Strikes Back, they have hyperspace. I think it's reasonable to assume they've had electric lights for quite a while. But yeah, so eventually the Raider wakes up, and it is kind of funny because they try talking to him, and Anakin even realizes, oh, 3PO, you can translate. Why don't you say something to him? And he keeps going. Eventually the Raider does say something, telling 3PO to shut up. That's appropriate. Anyway, but through the course of this, what Anakin finally realizes is, oh, the Raider's afraid. Because he doesn't know what's going on. He's injured. And Anakin took the weapon away from him. And he just has it, actually back behind him so that the Raider can't get to it. But the Raider doesn't know what's going to happen, and he knows he's injured. So eventually, Anakin's now thinking through and basically says that he isn't really afraid of anything. But he is afraid for other people. And so this gets interesting because they're basically foreshadowing there his mother's death because he doesn't know what he would do if he ever lost her. But then also later when he falls asleep, he starts having dreams, but I think we might be able to interpret them as Force visions of the future, which included him coming back to Tatooine to free the slaves, and finding his mother there and going to embrace her, but when he does, she vanishes. And shortly after this, he then is having visions of Sand People standing around with weapons and such, but being unsure what to do. But it is still, that definitely does seem to be foreshadowing that, yes, he will leave, and when he returns, his mother will be dead, or he will find her dying, something like that. Which we know in Attack of the Clones, she was in fact captured by Sand People and brutalized to the point that she does die shortly after he finds her, and then when we find out what he will do when he loses her, he will lose his mind and just slaughter everything around him. Great! So, yeah. But then he wakes up because it turns out that vision of the Sand People standing around was also real, in that he is now surrounded by Sand People that are kind of talking. He's really not sure what to do, but he does realize, I'm surrounded, I might as well relax, because I'm not getting out of here. But eventually he does know one in particular is talking, because basically they came for the wounded guy, and he was telling them, more or less, don't hurt him. He's helped me, leave him alone. So they all just leave. And Anakin is fine, the speeder's fine, 3PO's fine, and all the droids and such that he bought, they're all fine. He's probably going to get a walloping when he gets home, because he was out all night. Because it's like, even says in there that his mother will be angry, his mother will be concerned, Watto will be angry, because of him coming back so late, but he also has commented that, yeah, they'd never go out at night to find him, it's too dangerous. And they both know that he is intelligent enough, he knows how to take care of himself, to not, like, overnight isn't horrible. It's not good, but it's not he's gonna die if we don't get out there right away. So. Anyway. So yeah, it is interesting, this foreshadowing, because I definitely, whenever I would have read this, because it was, like, around the time the original book, the movie came out, that I would have read that novelization, I would not have known about Attack of the Clones and how that is in fact foreshadowing, so it just would seem to be a thing there. So yeah, it is interesting that, especially because Terry Brooks wrote the Phantom Menace novelization, while R.A. Salvatore wrote, I hope I pronounced that correctly, wrote Attack of the Clones. Now, true, it is still based on the story and screenplay by George Lucas for all three of these. So it is, obviously could just very easily been a plot point that, look, tease, foreshadow that his mother is going to die, and by the Raiders. Just, slip that in there. So, that way it can be explained later as, yes, he was seeing the future with the Force. Or at least versions of the future, because some of the stuff he also was, that's not what we know will happen, but then it's also, to be fair, you don't know how much the plans changed just as they were progressing. So, can't really think of much else to share. I think that I spent more of this time talking about what was in it than providing criticisms. Because, for the most part, I like doing the foreshadowing when it is done well. Because this, I could definitely believe that if you don't know what's coming, that would just slip you by. You wouldn't realize that that's what's going on. That is foreshadowing. You think it's just dreams. Or normal concerns for Anakin to have. But those inconsistencies, the confused states of what the secrets are, that is... Those very much deserve criticism, and I'll even add on top of that, those are things that shouldn't be there. Those are very small, as in easy to rectify issues. But they are there. Which means somebody along the line wasn't doing a good enough job. Whether that's the author, editor, or any of the other people that would have the hands on the stories. And I think I'm also a little biased because the secret stuff, the 3PO and pod racer thing, where it's unclear what the secret is. That is something that, if I were to reread one of my books, and because I am planning that when I do the assigned reading stuff on the 3 books that I recommend, I don't know if I'll do it for the other 2 that I don't recommend. I will actually make edits. But it would be things like that, where it's like, okay, this is unclear. It's a lack of clarity. I will correct that. I won't retcon. I will not rewrite anything that changes content. That's not okay. Not within the same book. I actually do want to completely rewrite one book. But that would be a separate book. That's fine. But with this, it's like, no, I legitimately would. But the thing is, I'm doing this all alone. This would have had at least one author. It's possible that they were also ghost authors. There's a thing. I'm just looking to see. I doubt I'm going to find it. But it also would have at least one editor, and it's actually not unreasonable in my mind that they would have had multiple. Because it's published by Del Rey Books, an imprint of Random House, and it's frickin' Star Wars. they're going to have a lot of people going over this stuff to make sure it is all correct. Plus, you'd probably have a number of people at the company being like, "Hey, can I get a copy? Can I see this? Can I go through this?" Which, to be fair, they would actually try to control that because you don't want anything getting out, don't want any leaks. But I would think they would not be short on finding, have a short list of people. Okay, no, I'm not putting that very well. The list would be long of people willing to work on it to make sure everything is right. So I could believe that they, yes, would have multiple editors, if only because they would have multiple people volunteering to take that on and making sure everything is perfect. Because it's also, when you think about it, any one of these books you would expect would be one of the bestsellers for your year. Anyone, because it's Star Wars. It's a novelization of the movie. That's going to sell. Maybe there would be other things that would sell better, in part because of, I don't think many people realize novelizations are a thing, even back then. But it is also, remember, I got this thing, like my mom bought it from a book fair, so this stuff was also going to schools. So you'd expect it to be sold there, and definitely you would see it being something that if you put it in a book fair, parents will see them and be like, Star Wars, the novelization of that? I want my kid to read. I'm buying it. Here you go, kid. That's exactly what you'd expect. So you would think there would be that heightened scrutiny, but you have that lack of clarity. Yeah, so it does bother me, and I am going to notice that stuff, catch it in this, and hopefully I will also catch it in my own stuff. Hey, I know I'm not perfect. And part of the reason I do this is to hopefully get better at finding the imperfections, and so I can fix them in myself, just as I can find them and not fix them in this stuff. Alright, I believe that is it. So yeah, next chapter, I saw it's with Naboo again, so that should be the Jedi entering into the palace, finding the queen, things like that. Yeah. Not sure where chapter 8, right? Next one is chapter 8, right? Yes. The one after. Not sure what chapter 8 will necessarily start. But yeah, we are getting there, and hopefully soon things will align. Oh, wait, hang on. Was that this chapter or was the last chapter? There was also some stuff with, I think that may have been the last chapter, with Sidious talking to, yeah, it must have been last chapter, with Sidious talking to the Trade Federation, and it wasn't anything special, but did kind of still, when reading that, it reminded me of the whole, I still have no reason to believe that this guy is intimidating, because he's intimidating two people that are, Anakin would intimidate them, and he's like 3 feet tall. So, yeah. Actually, now I'm wondering, how would a Jawa do against a Trade Federation? Because if the Trade Federation are so spineless, if the Neimoidians are so spineless there, what would a Jawa do that it has been hardened by Tatooine and with bartering? Oh man, that's actually kind of wild to think about. And they are like 3 feet. It mentions that Anakin is the same height as the Chief Jawa that he's dealing with. But it is, to me, that's a hilarious image. He said, this is how we're going to solve the blockade? Send the Jawas at them. Man. Alright. See you next time.